So what I would like to do today, I've picked a topic that is something that I hear students, prospective test takers talking about all the time. What they say is, I can get it down to two answers. And no matter what, I can't figure out why is it A and not B. Today, I actually got an email from a recent test taker who said that he thought all four of the answers often were really correct. And, that's not going to lead you to a way to figure out, well, wait a minute here, what's the best one? What's the right one? So as you can see, I posted a sample question because I'd like to use that as a way to teach you, to illustrate how you can kind of manage this problem. Yeah. Okay, so if you can see the question, I'm going to read it out loud. I'm going to take a slight drink before I do that. Residents of an assisted living center were unhappy to learn that a new policy reduced their weekly access to supervised exercise by 50%. A small group complained to the social worker, who responded by. Okay, now let's read the four answers because I think that's what people naturally do. They'll read the question, and I know you're under a significant time pressure during the test. So people will read the question sometimes pretty quickly and go right to the four answer choices because you think, well, one of them is the right one, and maybe in some way it'll be obvious, or it'll jump out at me, or I can figure it out. So the four answers: the social worker who responded by explaining the three reasons for the change, responded by giving them forms to file a grievance, by listening carefully to their specific concerns, by helping them accept and adapt to the change. Now, if you think about it just in terms of these answers, each one of these are kind of reasonable things to do, that you might do to try to be of help. So how in the world can you figure out the thinking of the person who wrote it and know why one is right or better than the other ones? Well, that actually is the key issue. You can't do it just from the four answers, but you actually can do it by focusing completely on the question. And they call that the stem, or the narrative part of the question. So let's go back for a moment, and I'm going to say let's just focus on the question. But here's the problem. After years of doing this, I have come to believe that the four answer choices actually have magic powers that pull you to them and take your attention away from the question. So when I say let's just go look at the question and ignore the answer choices, especially if you haven't read them and all you're going to want to do is go read them, it's really very, very, very hard to do that. And the secret to, I think, which is the only way to actually not look at the answers and not be considering all of the content in them, the only way, I think, is back to basics. You've got to cover the answers. People say to me, well, I won't look. I don't see how you can do that. It's almost impossible to sort of not look. So let's just pretend that we haven't looked at the answer choices and we're back at the question. What are we going to be able to figure out? One of the things is, if you imagine, for example, that you have been given the task of writing a question. If I say to you right now, I want you to take a pencil and I want you to write on any topic, write whatever you want, write a sample question. Probably the first thing that you're either going to ask me or that you're going to figure out for yourself is, well, wait a minute, I can't write a question without having a topic. See, I even called it a topic question. Okay, so, once you figure out the topic, then you can, in a variety of probably very endless creative ways, you can write a question that illustrates that concept. So let's try to imagine um, what the concept is that this question writer was writing. Now, sometimes you can ask yourself that question and it will kind of come out. But what we do and what I have trained and demonstrated to people at Passitpro, we have figured out a very simple method, several steps to help you figure out what the concept is that this question is illustrating. Because I think you know, if you are familiar with the ASWB website, aswb.org, they have these things called KSAs, knowledge, skills, and abilities. And for each test, they list a very long list of all the topics that are going to be on the test. And I think that is very helpful and nice of them to do. I think it's also totally overwhelming because there's so much on it. But at least it gives you an example that their job to see if they're going to give you or create a test that will cover these different topics. Their job is to use these topics to place them in a questions to be able to measure your knowledge. Okay, so when you look at this question, residents, one of the things you want to figure out is what very specifically is happening here. Because the 4 answer choices are good answers in general, but it doesn't work to think about things in general. What I like to say is that you should put yourself into this question, almost like it's a scene from a movie. I want you to see this, in color, that you are the social worker. That's the second thing. Not only to see what's happening at this exact moment in this question, but for you at all times to be the social worker. So you are standing there and you've got a group of people in front of you. And what do you know about this group of people? You know that something's just happened to them that they're very unhappy about, and they're coming to complain, to tell you about it. And you're standing there, maybe you're in your office, you could be in the hallway, we don't know. And you've got a whole bunch of very unhappy people that are telling you about this terrible thing. So where does that lead you to think about what you're going to do first? And, I wish that this was more interactive so that I could have you send me some answers and thoughts as we go along. But until I figure the technology out better, I'm not able to make this interactive. So this group of people standing in front of you, where do you start? And what we teach you at Passitpro is we have 4 simple steps that I'm sort of just going over now. 4 simple steps. Oh, I just got a message, so that means this can be interactive. Cool. Okay. I got a message from Jean that says she thinks it's option 3, listening carefully to their specific concern. Jean, I would like to tell you, you are absolutely right. But to me, what's important is, how did you figure that out? Because if you could see that if you could figure out what the concept is, then you'll be able to recognize it not only in this question, but hopefully in many other questions that might sound different, but are trying to illustrate the same issue. And that concept is engagement, is connection. That when you have people who are intensely feeling something, another word for it is empathy, to connect with the feeling state, the mind state of other people before you try to move beyond that and work with them around whatever, and in whatever other ways you may feel to be helpful. And that's what this question is about. At Passitpro, we will help you. What I like to say is we're going to help you become super duper detectives so that you can have a method and go boom, 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 and not waste lots of time. I'm not worried about time here today, so I'm going, I'm going pretty quickly. But during the test, of course, you have to do that quickly. So that's what we get it to be your normal sort of way of operating, to be able to figure out what's the concept, what's going on exactly at this moment that requires a response by the social worker, and which one fits with that. I hope this will help you get some idea of why I like to say the question is your friend on the test. This is the absolute reverse. Everyone thinks, oh boy, those 4 answers, I'm going to go there right away and they're going to rescue me. The truth is they're not going to rescue you. Maybe sometimes you'll see exactly, that might happen. But most of the time, especially with the situational questions, you're gonna see more than one answer that you say, hey, I do that sometimes, but that's perfectly reasonable. But the secret is that answer must be a perfect fit for that exact moment in that question, the situation that's described, which will call on you to figure out, if you can, what is going on and what's the concept that's an attempt to demonstrate to you. Any other questions, comments? Okay, so this is kind of what I'm going to be doing, probably mostly using a question, but to give you some idea of a very important, often very simple thing that can help you shape the way you not only study, but the way you figure out what's going on in the question. And obviously, I hope that this will be very helpful to you. If anybody has any other questions or comments, or even topics to suggest that you'd like me to see if I can be of some help with, you can go to Passitpro.com. That's our website, and there's a place where you can leave a message, and I'll respond as best I can, or as quickly as I can, because I'd like to be doing this in a way that is really responsive and tuned into the kinds of things that are on your mind. That helps me too, because then I continue to learn about what's important. Okay, so I think that's it for today. We hit about 15 minutes, which I think is pretty good. I hope this will be not only helpful to you, but give you some things to think about and skills to develop. And I plan to do this on Monday evenings or at 7 p.m. And I hope you have a very good week. Next week, unless I get a suggestion that I like even better, what we're going to talk about is how to memorize all the stuff that you have to memorize for this test. There's so much. How do you begin to sort of manage that? Well, I hope everybody has enjoyed this. I have. And I hope you'll have a really good week. And I hope to see you again next Monday. Okay. Goodbye, everybody.